The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It stretched upward for nearly a mile, with floating platforms arranged in circles around a central podium. Hundreds of alien species sat on these platforms, watching, judging, and whispering among themselves. Light came from everywhere and nowhere, a soft blue glow that made everything feel cold and distant. On one of the smaller platforms near the bottom, the human delegation sat quietly. Ambassador Daniel Harris adjusted his tie for the third time that morning. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and a face that seemed designed for smiling. And smile he did. He smiled when the Velthari delegates insulted Earth's primitive technology. He smiled when the Kurish traders demanded higher taxes on human goods. He smiled when the insectoid Morthani clicked their mandibles in what he knew was laughter at his expense. 17 years. That was how long humanity had been part of the Galactic Council. 17 years of smiling, nodding, and saying yes to almost everything. Katie Lawson sat beside him, her datapad balanced on her knee. She was younger than Daniel, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that noticed everything. She had spent 6 years learning alien languages, customs, and traditions. She knew which Velthari officials had children, what gifts the Kurish preferred, and how to properly greet a Morthani without triggering their defensive instincts. She was very good at her job. And her job, like Daniel's, was to make humanity look harmless. "The trade agreement is coming up next," she whispered to Daniel. "The Kurish want a 15% increase on shipping fees through their sector." Daniel kept smiling. "And what were they charging us before?" 12%. "Other species pay 8%. "Of course they do." Daniel's smile did not waver. "We will accept it." Katie nodded and made a note on her datapad. She did not argue. She never argued. That was not their purpose here. The truth was simple. When humanity had first made contact with alien life, they had been surrounded. A Velthari patrol fleet had found Earth's first interstellar probe and followed its signal back to the solar system. Within days, 200 alien warships had taken position around Earth. Their weapons pointed at every major city. The message had been clear. Join the Council. Follow the rules. Or be destroyed. Humanity had joined. Humanity had followed the rules. And humanity had smiled, but the smile was not real. It had never been real. In the years that followed first contact, Earth governments had made a decision. They would appear weak. They would appear friendly. They would let the older species believe that humans were no threat. And while the aliens laughed at humanity's simple ships and primitive weapons, Earth would build. Earth would prepare. Earth would wait. The Galactic Council saw what they wanted to see. They saw a young species desperate for acceptance. They saw clumsy diplomats who brought chocolate and coffee as gifts. They saw a world with a small defense fleet and no apparent military tradition. They did not see what was hidden deep beneath Earth's surface. Factories worked day and night. Shipyards in orbit around Mars produced vessels that never appeared on any official registry. Weapons research continued in facilities that did not officially exist. Billions of humans trained in combat, strategy, and survival. The Council thought humanity had a defense fleet of 40 ships. The real number was much, much higher, but nobody knew this. Nobody except the humans themselves. Daniel Harris stood as the Velthari High Speaker called the chamber to attention. The High Speaker was an enormous creature, nearly 12 feet tall, with silver scales and 4 arms that moved constantly as he spoke. His voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. The Council will now address the matter of trade route taxation in Sector 7. Daniel walked to the central podium. Every eye in the chamber turned to watch him. Some looked curious. Most looked bored. A few looked amused. The Kurish delegate leaned forward. He was a thin being with pale blue skin and a mouth full of needle-like teeth. "Ambassador Harris, I trust you have reviewed our proposal? I have, Daniel said. His voice was warm and friendly. The proposed increase is significant, but we understand the operational costs of maintaining safe passage through your territory. Earth is prepared to accept the new terms. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Kurish delegate looked almost disappointed. He had expected negotiation. He had expected resistance. Instead, he got immediate compliance. You do not wish to discuss the matter further? The Kurish asked. Daniel spread his hands. What is there to discuss? Your needs are clear. We are happy to contribute to the stability of the sector. The Vulturi High Speaker made a sound that might have been a laugh. The humans are always so agreeable. It is refreshing. Katie watched from her seat. Her face showed nothing, but inside she felt the familiar burn of frustration. Every time they gave in, every time they smiled and accepted unfair treatment, it got a little harder. She knew why they did it. She understood the strategy, but that did not make it easier. After the session ended, Daniel and Katie walked through the station's corridors toward the human quarters. Alien beings moved around them, some nodding politely, others ignoring them entirely. 15%, Katie said quietly. That will cost Earth billions. I know. The Kurish are laughing at us. They think we are fools. I know that too. Katie stopped walking. How much longer do we have to do this? Daniel turned to face her. For just a moment, his smile faded. Beneath it, she saw something else. Something hard. Something patient. As long as it takes, he said. The day will come when we do not have to smile anymore. But that day is not today. Today, we are weak. Today, we are harmless. Today, we are no threat to anyone. He put his hand on her shoulder, but tomorrow is a different story. They continued walking. Around them, the station hummed with activity. Alien traders made deals. Diplomats argued. Ships came and went. Nobody paid attention to the two humans, walking quietly through the crowd. Nobody ever did. And that was exactly how humanity wanted it. Back on Earth. In a facility that did not appear on any map. A general reviewed the latest reports from the outer colonies. Kepler Station had reported increased Drexari activity near their sector. The Drexari were not part of the council. They were raiders, slavers. They took what they wanted and cared nothing for law or diplomacy. The general made a note and forwarded the report to Naval Command. In orbit around Mars. A new warship completed its final tests. It was fast, heavily armed, and completely invisible to council sensors. The crew celebrated quietly. They knew their ship would never be seen by alien eyes, unless it was meant to be seen. The smile continued. The act went on. And deep inside, humanity waited for the moment when the mask would finally come off. That moment was coming sooner than anyone expected. Kepler Station floated in the darkness at the edge of known space. It was a mining outpost, home to 300 colonists who worked the asteroid fields for rare minerals. The station was old but functional, with living quarters, a small medical bay, and a cafeteria where families gathered for meals. On the morning, everything changed. 12-year-old Emma Grant was eating breakfast with her father. He was a miner named Paul Grant, a quiet man with rough hands and a kind smile. Emma's mother had died during childbirth, so it had always been just the two of them. Finish your food, Paul said. School starts in 20 minutes. Emma made a face. We are on a space station 1,000,000 miles from Earth. Why do I still have to go to school? Because your brain needs exercise just like your body does. She sighed dramatically, but continued eating. Around them, other families did the same. Children laughed and complained about homework. Parents discussed work schedules and weekend plans. It was ordinary. It was peaceful. It would not stay that way for long. The first warning came at exactly 9 in the morning. A loud alarm cut through the station. Red lights began flashing in every corridor. A voice came over the speakers, calm but urgent. Attention, all personnel. Unknown vessels have entered sensor range. This is not a drill. All civilians report to the central shelter immediately. Paul grabbed Emma's hand. Come on, stay close to me. They ran through the corridors with dozens of other colonists. The shelter was located in the center of the station, protected by thick walls and emergency systems. It was designed to hold everyone in case of asteroid impacts or equipment failures. It was not designed for what was coming. The Drexari ships appeared without warning. There were 6 of them, dark and angular, their hulls covered in strange symbols. They moved fast, faster than anything the station's sensors could track properly. The station commander, a woman named Laura Chun, stood in the control room and watched them approach. She had been a military officer before retiring to this quiet posting. She had hoped never to see combat again. Send a distress signal, she ordered. All frequencies. Tell them we are under attack. The communications officer typed frantically. Signal sent. But the nearest council patrol is 3 days away. Earth fleet response time is at least 48 hours. Laura looked at the approaching ships. She knew what the Drexari were. Everyone in the outer colonies knew. They were slavers. They raided settlements, took prisoners, and sold them to buyers in the lawless regions of the galaxy. How many weapons do we have? 2 mining lasers. They are not designed for combat. Use them anyway. The Drexari did not bother negotiating. Their first shot disabled the station's engines. The second took out the power grid. Within minutes, Kepler Station was dark and helpless. In the shelter, Paul held Emma close as the wall shook. Other children were crying. Some adults prayed. Others simply stared at the ceiling, waiting. The breach came 20 minutes later. Drexari soldiers poured through the damaged airlocks. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that showed no emotion. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Commander Chun tried to organize a defense, but there was little anyone could do. The colonists were miners and engineers, not soldiers. They had no weapons, no training, no chance. The Drexari were efficient. They moved through the station room by room, stunning anyone who resisted, binding anyone who did not. They seemed to be looking for something specific. When they reached the shelter, they forced the doors open with cutting tools. Inside, 300 terrified people waited. A Drexari officer stepped forward. He looked over the crowd with cold calculation. Children, he said in broken common. We want children. Young ones, valuable. Paul pushed Emma behind him. No, you are not taking anyone. The officer raised his weapon and shot Paul in the chest. He collapsed to the ground, unconscious but alive. Emma screamed. The Drexari soldiers moved through the shelter, pulling children away from their parents. Anyone who fought back was stunned. 12 children were taken in total, Emma among them. 35 adults were also selected. Those who appeared healthy and strong. In less than an hour, the Drexari were gone. Their ships vanished into the darkness, leaving Kepler Station crippled and bleeding. Commander Chun crawled to the communications console. Her arm was broken and blood ran down her face, but she managed to activate the emergency beacon. This is Kepler Station, she said, her voice shaking. We have been attacked by Drexari forces. 47 colonists have been taken, including 12 children. Repeat, 12 children have been taken. We need immediate assistance. The message traveled through space at the speed of light. It passed relay stations and communication hubs. It crossed sectors and boundaries. And eventually, it reached the Galactic Council Station. Daniel Harris was in the middle of a trade negotiation when his aide rushed in with a datapad. Katie's face was pale. Her hands were trembling. Daniel knew immediately that something was very wrong. He excused himself from the session and stepped into the corridor. Katie showed him the message. He read it twice, then a third time. His jaw tightened. His hands formed fists. 12 children, he said quietly. The Drexari will sell them, Katie replied. That is what they do. They take people and sell them to the highest bidder. Daniel closed his eyes. For 17 years, he had smiled. For 17 years, he had played the part of the harmless diplomat. He had accepted insults, paid unfair taxes, and bowed to every demand the council made. But this was different. This was children. He opened his eyes. Katie saw something there she had never seen before. It was not anger. It was something colder, something older. It was the look of a predator who had been pretending to be prey. Contact Earth, he said. Tell them to wake up the admirals. Katie nodded and hurried away. Daniel returned to the council chamber. The trade negotiation was still ongoing. The Kurdish delegate was arguing about shipping fees. The Velthari High Speaker looked bored. Daniel walked to the podium and raised his hand. Distinguished members, he said, his voice steady. I must inform you of an emergency situation. A human colony has been attacked by Drexari forces. 47 of our people have been taken prisoner, including 12 children. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the Velthari High Speaker waved one of his 4 arms dismissively. The Drexari are not part of the council. We have no authority over them. We request assistance in negotiating the safe return of our people. The Kurdish delegate made a clicking sound. The Drexari do not negotiate. They are raiders. It is regrettable, but there is nothing we can do. They took children, Daniel said again. As I said, regrettable. Daniel stood very still. His smile was gone now. The friendly diplomat had vanished. In his place stood something else entirely. I see, he said softly. Thank you for your guidance. He turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. Behind him, the council members returned to their business. Trade agreements were discussed. Shipping fees were debated. Nobody gave much thought to the human children who had been taken. They assumed the matter was closed. They were very wrong. In a secure room aboard the station, Daniel activated a direct communication link to Earth. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Admiral Grace Thompson, commander of the United Earth Naval Command. We received the report, she said. What are your orders? Daniel took a deep breath. 17 years of pretending. 17 years of hiding. It was about to end. Wake up the fleet, he said. All of it. We are going to get our children back. Admiral Thompson nodded once. And the council? The council has made their position clear. They will not help us. Daniel's voice was ice. So we will help ourselves. The communication ended. Daniel sat alone in the dark room for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked back out to face whatever came next. 3 days passed. The Galactic Council continued its business as usual. Trade agreements were signed. Disputes were settled. Diplomatic receptions were held. Nobody spoke about the attack on Kepler Station. Nobody asked about the human children. The human delegation was absent. This was unusual, but not alarming. Ambassador Harris had sent a polite message explaining that Earth was dealing with an internal matter and would return to council sessions shortly. The elder species accepted this without much thought. Humans were always polite, even when tragedy struck. On the 4th day, the Morthani intelligence network detected something strange. The Morthani were an insectoid species with compound eyes and an obsession with information. They had listening posts scattered across the galaxy, monitoring communications and tracking ship movements. Very little happened without the Morthani knowing about it. A junior analyst named Scrix was reviewing routine data when he noticed an anomaly. A cluster of energy signatures had appeared near the edge of human territory. They were moving fast, heading toward Drixari space. Scrix counted the signatures 3 times to make sure he was not mistaken. 18 vessels. All of them massive. All of them armed. He immediately contacted his superior. "There must be an error," the senior analyst said. "Humans do not have 18 warships. Their entire defense fleet is less than 40 vessels, and most of those are patrol craft." "I have checked the data repeatedly," Scrix replied. "The signatures are real. They are definitely human in origin. That is impossible." But it was not impossible. It was happening right now. The council convened an emergency session within the hour. Delegates rushed to the chamber, their usual calm replaced by confusion and concern. What was happening? What were the humans doing? Daniel Harris entered the chamber alone. Katie Lawson followed a few steps behind. They walked slowly, deliberately, as if they had all the time in the world. The Valtteri High Speaker stood at his podium, all 4 arms waving in agitation. "Ambassador Harris, explain yourself immediately. Our sensors have detected a human fleet moving toward Drexari territory." Daniel stopped at the central podium. He did not smile. He did not apologize. He simply looked up at the towering alien and spoke. "Our children were taken. That does not give you the right to wage war." The Kurish delegate shouted. "There are protocols. There are procedures. You cannot simply attack another species without council authorization." "We asked for your help," Daniel said calmly. "You refused. The Drexari are not part of the council. We have no jurisdiction over their actions." "Exactly. And since you have no jurisdiction, you have no authority to stop us either." The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded sanctions against humanity. Others called for immediate military intervention. The chaos was unlike anything the council had seen in centuries. Katie stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "For 17 years, we have been members of this council. For 17 years, we have followed every rule you set. We paid your taxes, even when they were twice what other species paid. We accepted your insults with a smile. We never complained, never fought back, never raised our voices." She paused, looking around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. "We did this because we believed in cooperation. We believed that if we were patient and kind, you would eventually see us as equals. We were wrong." The Valtteri High Speaker leaned forward. "You are threatening the council? You?" "We are not threatening anyone," Katie replied. "We are simply explaining the situation. You chose not to help our children, so we will help them ourselves. When our mission is complete, we will return and resume our duties as council members. Nothing else needs to change, and if we demand that you stop," Daniel answered, "then we will refuse." Silence fell over the chamber. The elder species looked at the 2 humans standing before them, and for the first time, they saw something they had never noticed before. These were not weak beings. These were not simple creatures desperate for approval. These were predators. They had been hiding in plain sight for 17 years, and now the mask was slipping. The Morthani delegate raised one of his many limbs. "I have a question," he said, his voice clicking and buzzing. "Our intelligence indicates that humanity possesses only 40 defense vessels. Yet we are detecting 18 heavy warships. Where did these ships come from?" Daniel tilted his head. "I am not sure I understand the question." "You understand perfectly. You have been hiding your true military strength. Why? We have not hidden anything. We simply never announced it. How many ships does humanity actually possess?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. But this was not the warm, friendly smile the council was used to. This was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. "Enough," he said simply. The Koresh delegate made a hissing sound. "You have been deceiving us from the beginning. Your entire diplomatic presence has been a lie." "No," Katie said. "We have been exactly what you expected us to be. You wanted weak, harmless newcomers, so that is what we showed you. The lie is not ours. The lie is what you told yourselves about us." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Far away, beyond the reach of council sensors, the human fleet crossed into Drexari space. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars streak past. "Any response from the Drexari?" she asked. "Nothing yet," her communications officer replied. "Either they do not know we are coming, or they do not consider us a threat. They will learn." The fleet was not traveling at normal speed. Human engineers had developed a new form of propulsion decades ago, but they had never revealed it. The technology was hidden, kept secret for exactly this kind of moment. The Drexari homeworld was still 2 days away at standard speed. At the fleet's current velocity, they would arrive in 12 hours back at the council station. Daniel and Katie remained in the chamber. The delegates were arguing among themselves, trying to decide what to do. Some wanted to warn the Drexari. Others suggested staying out of the conflict entirely. A few even proposed allying with the humans, hoping to curry favor with a species that was clearly more powerful than anyone had realized. The Velthari High Speaker raised his arms for silence. When the chamber quieted, he addressed Daniel directly. "Ambassador Harris, on behalf of the Council, I must inform you that your actions today will have consequences. We do not yet know what form those consequences will take, but rest assured, there will be a reckoning." Daniel nodded politely. "I understand. And I want you to understand something in return." "What is that?" "When this is over, when our people are safe, we will come back here. We will sit in these seats and participate in these sessions. We will be polite. We will be friendly. We will smile." He paused. "But you should never forget what happened today. You should never forget that we asked for your help and you refused. Because the next time we ask for something, you should remember that we do not actually need your permission. We never did." He turned and walked out of the chamber. Katie followed, but she stopped at the door and looked back at the assembled delegates. "By the way," she said, "the 18 ships we sent? Those are not our best vessels. Those are just the ones we could spare on short notice." She left without waiting for a response. The council sat in stunned silence. For the first time in their long history, they realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had looked at humanity and seen weakness. They had looked at smiles and seen submission. They had looked at kindness and seen fear. They had been looking at the wrong things entirely. And now it was too late to take it back. In the human quarters aboard the station, Daniel sat alone. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the effort of holding back 17 years of frustration and rage. Katie entered quietly and sat beside him. "Are you all right?" "No," he admitted. "I am tired of pretending. I am tired of smiling at people who treat us like animals. I am tired of being patient." "I know, but we had to do this." "Yes, we did." He looked at her. "When the children are safe, when this is over, I am going to resign. I cannot keep wearing this mask. What will you do?" Daniel thought about it. "I think I will teach. History, maybe. So that future generations understand why we did what we did. So they know the price we paid to get here." Katie nodded. "That sounds good." They sat together in silence, waiting for news from the fleet. Tomorrow, everything would change. The Drexari homeworld was called Nexus Prime. It was a gray planet covered in industrial cities and slave markets. Billions of beings lived there, some free, most not. The Drexari had built their empire on the backs of captured workers from dozens of species. They had never been challenged. Not really. The species they raided were too weak to fight back. The Council refused to intervene in external matters. The Drexari did whatever they wanted, took whatever they wanted, and answered to no one. When their sensors detected the approaching human fleet. They laughed. Admiral Corax stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the display screens with amusement. 18 ships. Just 18. His own fleet numbered over 200 vessels, each one battle-tested and armed with the finest weapons Drexari engineering could produce. These are the famous humans? He said to his officers. The ones who bring chocolates and flowers to council meetings? His officers laughed. They had all heard stories about humanity. Soft creatures. Weak creatures. Creatures who smiled and bowed and never fought back. Should we send a warning? One officer asked. Why bother? Corax replied. They have come to die. Let us grant their wish. He ordered 100 ships to intercept the human fleet. It was excessive, almost insulting. But Corax wanted to make a point. He wanted other species to see what happened when anyone dared challenge the Drexari. The two fleets met in the empty space between stars. Admiral Thompson watched the approaching enemy on her tactical display. 100 warships against 18. The odds were terrible. By any reasonable calculation, the human fleet should retreat. But Thompson was not interested in reasonable calculations. All ships, prepare for combat, she announced over the fleet channel. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. 12 children are waiting for us to bring them home. The human ships were different from anything the Drexari had seen before. They were angular and aggressive, covered in what appeared to be thick armor plating. No elegant curves, no decorative elements. These were machines built for a single purpose. War. The Drexari fired first. Hundreds of energy beams lanced through space, striking the human ships. Shields flared and flickered. The flagship shuddered under the impact. Damage report? Thompson ordered. Minor hull damage on sections 4 and 7. Shields holding at 80%. Thompson nodded. Return fire. The human ships did not use energy weapons. Instead, they launched projectiles. Simple metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. The technology was ancient by galactic standards. Something most species had abandoned. Thousands of years ago, the Drexari had never faced such weapons. The first salvo struck their lead, ships before anyone could react. At the speeds the projectiles traveled, there was no time to dodge, no time to raise shields. The slugs punched through holes like paper, tearing ships apart from the inside. 20 Drexari. Vessels exploded in the first 30 seconds. Admiral Corax stared at his display in disbelief. What is happening? What weapons are those? Nobody answered. Nobody knew. The battle continued. The Drexari outnumbered the humans 5-1. But numbers meant nothing when your enemy could kill you before you even knew they were firing. Human ships moved in tight formations, covering each other, concentrating their fire on single targets. One by one, Drexari vessels burned. The human fleet lost 3 ships in the first hour. The Drexari lost 67. When the smoke cleared, the remaining Drexari forces retreated in panic. They had never seen anything like this. They had never faced an enemy who fought with such precision and such fury. Admiral Thompson watched them flee. Do not pursue, she ordered. Our mission is rescue, not revenge. The fleet continued toward Nexus Prime. On the Drexari homeworld, chaos erupted. Reports of the battle spread quickly. Citizens who had never known fear suddenly understood what it felt like. The military, which had seemed invincible, had been shattered by a species everyone thought was harmless. Corax returned to Nexus Prime with the survivors of his fleet. He expected to be punished for his failure. Instead, the Drexari High Command was too busy panicking to deal with him. "The humans are still coming," one commander shouted. "They will be in orbit within hours." "Then stop them. Send everything we have." But there was nothing left to send. The 100 ships that had been destroyed represented nearly half of the Drexari military. The remaining vessels were scattered across dozens of systems, too far away to help. For the first time in their history, the Drexari were defenseless. The Galactic Council watched the battle footage in stunned silence. Someone had leaked the sensor data, and now every delegate could see exactly what had happened. Human ships tearing through Drexari formations. Metal projectiles moving faster than light itself. Explosions blooming in the darkness like deadly flowers. The Velthari High Speaker said nothing. He could not find words. The Kurish delegate was trembling. They destroyed half the Drexari fleet in one engagement. How is this possible? Their technology should be centuries behind ours. "It appears," the Morthani delegate said slowly, "that we have made a significant error in our assessment of human capabilities." Katie Lawson sat at the back of the chamber, watching the footage with a blank expression. Daniel was in their quarters, coordinating with Earth. He had asked her to observe the Council's reaction. She was not. Disappointed. The delegates were terrified. She could see it in their body language, hear it in their voices. They had spent 17 years believing humans were harmless pets, and now they were watching those pets tear apart a species that had terrorized the galaxy for generations. It was satisfying. She was not proud of feeling that way, but she could not deny it. One of the younger Kurish delegates approached her. "Why did you hide this?" he asked. "Why did you pretend to be weak?" Katie considered the question. "Why do you assume we were pretending? Clearly, your military strength is far greater than you admitted." "Our military strength is exactly what it is," Katie said. "You simply never asked to see it. You were too busy laughing at our gifts and mocking our customs to look beneath the surface." The delegate had no response to that dot in orbit around Nexus Prime. The human fleet took position. Admiral Thompson broadcast a message on all frequencies. "To the government of the Drexari Dominion, you have taken 47 human citizens prisoner, including 12 children. You will return them immediately and unharmed. You have 6 hours to comply. If you do not comply, we will come down there and take them back ourselves. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning." The message was received in the Drexari capital. For 1 hour, the government debated what to do. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested killing the prisoners and forcing the humans to attack, hoping to make them look like aggressors. In the end, Fear 1. The prisoners were transported to a shuttle and sent up to the human fleet. Emma Grant was the first to step off when the shuttle docked with the flagship. She was tired and frightened, but she was alive. Admiral Thompson met the prisoners personally. "You are safe now," she told them. "We are taking you home." Emma looked up at her. "They said nobody would come for us. They said humans were too weak to fight back." Thompson knelt down to meet the girl's eyes. "They were wrong. We will always come for our people. Always." The human fleet remained in orbit for another 12 hours. They did not attack the planet. They did not issue demands. They simply watched and waited, letting the Drexari understand exactly how vulnerable they were. Then, when they were satisfied that the message had been received, they turned and headed home. Behind them, the Drexari began the long process of rebuilding their shattered military and their shattered pride. They would never raid human territory again. The galaxy had learned something important that day. Humans smiled because they chose to, not because they had to. Their kindness was not weakness. Their patience was not fear. It was restraint, and restraint could be removed. The human fleet returned to Earth as heroes. Crowds gathered at every spaceport to welcome them home. News broadcasts showed footage of the rescued colonists stepping off their ships, reuniting with families who had feared they would never see them again. Emma Grant ran into her father's arms and did not let go for hours, but not everyone was celebrating. On the Galactic Council Station, an emergency summit had been called. Delegates from every major species gathered to discuss what had happened and what it meant for the future. The chamber was packed. Nobody wanted to miss this. Ambassador Daniel Harris returned to represent humanity. He walked into the chamber with Katie Lawson at his side, just as he always had. But something was different now. The delegates who used to ignore him now watched his every move. The species who used to mock humanity now kept a respectful distance. Fear had replaced contempt. The Veltri High Speaker called the session to order. His voice was colder than usual, his forearms held stiffly at his sides. Ambassador Harris, the Council has reviewed the events of the past week. Your unprovoked attack on the Dressari Dominion has destabilized an entire region of the galaxy. You have violated 17 Council statutes regarding the use of military force. You have revealed that your species has been deceiving us about your true capabilities for nearly 2 decades. He paused. What do you have to say for yourself? Daniel stood at the central podium. He was calm, patient, almost relaxed. The smile was still absent from his face. High Speaker, I would like to clarify a few points. First, our action was not unprovoked. The Drexari attacked a civilian installation and kidnapped 47 of our citizens. Second, we did not violate any statutes. The Drexari are not council members, so council law does not apply to conflicts with them. Third, we have not deceived anyone. We simply chose not to reveal information that no one asked about. The Kurish delegate made an angry clicking sound. You hid warships. You hid weapons. You pretended to be weak while building a fleet capable of destroying us all. We built a fleet capable of protecting our people, Daniel replied. We never threatened anyone. We never attacked anyone who did not attack us first. If you feel threatened by our ability to defend ourselves, perhaps you should ask why that is. The chamber erupted in arguments. Delegates shouted at each other and at the human representatives. Some demanded sanctions. Others called for humanity's expulsion from the council. A few suggested military action, though those voices quieted when they remembered what had happened to the Drexari. Katie stepped forward. May I speak? The High Speaker waved permission. 17 years ago, your fleet surrounded our world. You told us to disarm or face destruction. We complied because we had no choice. We joined your council because you gave us no alternative. Every day since then, we have endured your mockery, your unfair taxes, and your condescension. We accepted all of it because we believed that peace was worth any price. She looked around the chamber. But peace does not mean surrendering our children to slavers. Peace does not mean watching our people suffer while you debate procedures. We came to you for help. You refused. So we helped ourselves. The Morthani delegate raised a limb. You speak of peace, but you have demonstrated that you are capable of terrible violence. How can we trust you? You trusted us when you thought we were weak, Katie replied. Nothing has changed except your perception. We are the same people we were last week, last year, last century. The only difference is that now you know what we can do. Whether you trust us or not is up to you. Daniel took over. Let me be very clear about something. We do not want conflict with the Council. We do not want to dominate anyone or conquer anyone. We want exactly what we have always wanted. To live in peace, to trade fairly, to explore the galaxy alongside the other species. He paused. But we will not be taken advantage of anymore. We will not accept double taxation. We will not tolerate insults. And above all, We will not allow anyone to harm our children without consequence. The High Speaker leaned forward. And if the Council decides there must be consequences for your actions. Daniel met his gaze without flinching. Then the Council can try to impose those consequences. But before you do, I suggest you consider something. He turned to Katie. She tapped on her datapad, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a star map of human territory, dotted with thousands of icons. This is a real-time map of the United Earth Naval Command, Daniel explained. Each icon represents a combat-ready vessel. We currently have 4,216 ships in active service. We have 47 million personnel trained for ground combat, with another 200 million reservists. The chamber fell completely silent. We have been preparing for this moment since the day your fleet surrounded our world. We never wanted to use this power. We hoped we would never have to. But we will use it if we must. He let the words sink in. Now, you mentioned consequences. Would you like to discuss what those might look like? Or shall we proceed with a new understanding between our species? The Valkyrie High Speaker stared at the map for a long moment. 4,000 ships, more than the entire Council fleet combined. And these were just the ones the humans had revealed. How many more might be hidden? He thought about the Drexari battle footage. Human weapons tearing through shields like they were not there. Human ships charging directly at superior numbers without hesitation. Human soldiers willing to die for a handful of children, for the first time in his long life. The High Speaker felt something he had never experienced before. He felt small. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should discuss a new framework for human relations with the Council. Daniel nodded. I think that would be wise. The summit continued for 3 more days. New agreements were drafted. Trade routes were renegotiated. The special taxes on human goods were eliminated. Most importantly, new protocols were established for emergencies. Protocols that ensured no species would ever be told to accept losses when their people were in danger. When the summit ended, Daniel and Katie returned to the human quarters. They were exhausted but satisfied. We did it, Katie said. 17 years of pretending, and now it is finally over. Not entirely over, Daniel replied. We still have to live with these species. We still have to work with them, trade with them, exist alongside them. The hard work is just beginning, but at least they respect us now. They fear us. That is not the same thing. Daniel sat down heavily. Fear fades. Fear turns to resentment. If we are not careful, the next century will be worse than the last. Katie considered this. Then, what do? We prove to them that our kindness was not an act. We show them that humans can be strong and gentle at the same time. We help them when they need it, even when they do not ask. We build relationships based on mutual respect, not fear. He smiled, and this time it was genuine. We go back to being polite. But now they know what the politeness means. On Earth, the rescued colonists settled back into their lives. Emma Grant returned to Kepler Station, which had been repaired and reinforced. Her father enrolled her in school again, and she complained about homework just like before. But sometimes, late at night, she would look out the window at the stars and remember the human ships that had come for her. She remembered Admiral Thompson kneeling down to meet her eyes. She remembered the words, "We will always come for our people." Always. She decided she wanted to be that kind of person when she grew up. Someone who protected others. Someone who did not look away when children were in danger. Across the galaxy, the story of Kepler Station spread. Other species heard about what humanity had done. Some were frightened. Some were impressed. A few began to reconsider their own assumptions about strength and weakness. The Drexari never fully recovered. Their military was rebuilding, but their reputation was destroyed. The species they had terrorized for generations now saw that they could be defeated. Slave revolts erupted on a dozen worlds. Trading partners abandoned them. Within a decade, the Drexari Dominion would collapse entirely, replaced by a collection of independent states that wanted nothing to do with the old ways. And humanity? Humanity returned to the council chamber with chocolates and coffee and handwritten cards. They smiled at the other delegates. They made small talk about family and weather and cultural traditions. They were polite, but the other species saw the smile differently now. They saw it for what it truly was, not weakness, not submission, not fear. A choice. Humanity was kind because they wanted to be kind. They were peaceful because they valued peace. Their gentleness was not a limitation, but a gift, freely given to everyone who did not force them to take it back. The Galactic Council learned this lesson on the day they watched humanity's polite facade shatter in real time. They learned that the softest voice can belong to the strongest hand. They learned that patience is not the same as surrender, and they never forgot in the years that followed. The council chambers became a different place. Delegates treated each other with more respect. Disputes were resolved with greater fairness. Species that had once been mocked found themselves protected by new rules and new allies. It was not perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was better. And when young diplomats from other species asked what had changed,